the AP is being taken at home? Lindars.
That. All right, I will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I will call the meeting to order.
Someone has some speakers they need to turn off, please.
Yes, it was me, and I'm playing around with the delay there. Sorry, Dan. I had the YouTube window open and it was on a delay. All right, now I can start the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation and justice for all. All right, welcome to our audio board meeting. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? This is Rebecca, so moved.
This is Tim, seconded.
All right, does anybody have any comments on tonight's agenda? Any discussion? All right, no comments on the agenda. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? All right, so the agenda is approved. And Sarah, I'm going to have to ask for help on how we're doing the public comment.
There are none. We have a live chat open on YouTube, and at this time, there are no comments.
Okay, so we'll move forward.
Sure,
sorry.
can I just interject for a second
Sure.
and just ask one question?
Sure.
On motions, Sarah, does it make more sense to do a roll call on motions? So
Marissa.
it's just not a collection of that.
Has joined the meeting.
Yes, Dan, that would be fine.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Marissa. We are now on 3.01. And we've just decided to do any motions, we'll do a roll call.
I was going to suggest that. Okay, so we got started. All right, so we're on 3.01 with the superintendent's report. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. This is Superintendent Dr. Craig Tice. Superintendent's report today, beginning, and you should find it in board docs. Under internal operations, I would like to thank President Mims, Vice President Lindars, the Board of Education, our district clerk, and our instructional technology team for making this evening's meeting possible during the COVID-19 pandemic. Given the number of important items on tonight's agenda, I would like to offer my humble appreciation for everyone's collaborative spirit in this endeavor. Under community relations, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Christine Giroux and Nancy Cole for their efforts to maintain regular updates on our school district website during the school closure period. Well done. I've received a number of positive comments. Under administration, I would like to extend my gratitude to the school district administrators for helping to coordinate the closing of their respective buildings, assisting in the retrieval of personal items by the students, and aiding in the distribution of Chromebooks along with our instructional technology team members. Their efforts did not go unnoticed. Under non-instructional business operations, I would also like to go on record that I'm indebted to our non-instructional workers who have labored to keep essential functions running during the school closure period. From our food service workers who are preparing student breakfasts and lunches, to our transportation department employees who deliver these meals, to our instructional technology team members who maintain the online
Carol Wheeler has joined the meeting.
Instructional platform backbone, to our buildings and grounds crew members and custodial and maintenance for their efforts to disinfect and provide a deep cleaning of the buildings during this pandemic. Your collective efforts are worthy of our recognition. You are all committed to the children and are working tirelessly to bring these essential services to the families of the Fayetteville-Manlius Central School District community. Under the area of personnel and pupil personnel services, I'm pleased to report that Assistant Superintendent Lisa Deneen and Steve Garner met with all school psychologists, counselors, and homeschool liaisons last Monday to discuss how the district was going to provide mental health support to our students, as well as an ongoing communication plan. We should be proud of their collective efforts. In the area of special ed, the special ed team discussed the importance of K-8 special ed in high school 12-1-1 and 15-1. Teachers are communicating with students and parents on a daily basis, as well as providing individualized work. We're using packets sent for a variety of methods, Schoology or Google, and since the students and parents have individualized login passwords for these different types of software. Under high school resource, the teachers are working on a number of initiatives, including special ed teachers contacting parents and guardians of students individually to establish the preferred method of daily interaction and communication. These teachers will emphasize that daily interaction will occur to support the students as in the classroom. All interaction must be individual, since the school district cannot control who has access at the other end of the platform. District staff plans on using the Google Meet interface in order to meet individually with the students and to facilitate face-to-face interactions. Staff will focus on supportive technology and a form will be used to log student contact and communications in an effort to ascertain the individual student's daily need for support. Teachers will upload additional resources that may be helpful for individual students, and administrators will remind all staff of the importance of the role that special education teachers play in providing the emotional support and reassurance to these students who especially have to deal with this abrupt transition. For our related services team members, they're communicating with parents or students once or twice a week, as well as sending home instructional activities that meet the IEP goals. And in the area of related services, it'll be important to realize that physical therapy is in a different situation due to the gross motor component of these student goals. Accordingly, our physical therapists are offering suggested activities to support balance and strength and overall gross motor agility. The district will provide compensatory services to make up for missed sessions if necessary. Under students, I would like to thank all of our faculty members who have transitioned to an online learning platform with a great deal of aplomb. Their efforts to move seamlessly into a learning management system like Schoology has paid immeasurable dividends. Likewise, the esprit de corps among the faculty at the many different staff meetings that I had the pleasure of attending during our recent professional development day speaks volumes of their dedication to the children and to the community. It should be noted that most, if not all, of our teachers are providing asynchronous educational material online, and many of them are augmenting these concepts and skills with synchronous instructional opportunities. In fact, some of you may have visited the WRVO site today where Beck Stevens and her student book club were featured. I would like to thank all of our teachers for moving the curriculum forward in so many ways. Under instruction, and as mentioned in some of our backup material, we have begun internal discussions on whether or not it makes sense to expand our upcoming summer school program, especially not knowing if we will be back in session, and open it to those students who feel that they may need some additional support before transitioning to the next grade level. I know that Mr. Furlong will present a preliminary budget tonight that could change dramatically based on the decisions made by the New York State Assembly and Senate. Nevertheless, it would be helpful to determine if these internal discussions should continue, and based on whether or not the Board of Ed is supportive of the idea. So as promised, I'd like to engender a discussion on that idea right now at its inception. So that ends my report, but I'd certainly be open to hearing what the board feels about should we explore that as an option.
Thank you very much, Craig. Appreciate that report, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing on behalf of our district. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Craig in regard to the report? I know you wanted to, I think it sounds like you want to start off with our thoughts on summer school.
Exactly. I know that'll mean a lot of advanced planning. And it'll also have
Well, I
budgetary
certainly would be
implications.
in favor, I would be supportive of that as an option for our students. What do other board members think?
Yeah,
I would agree, Martha. Okay, so that was Daryl and Sherry.
So this is Rebecca, and I definitely would. I think some of the community member concerns we've seen over the last week have a consistent theme, which is how are we going to make sure that these kids are transitioning? So whether people choose summer school or not, will there be some sort of process to evaluate kids where they're at prior to the next school year starting or at the beginning of the next school year? Because I think parents are looking for some reassurance that whatever goes on during these next months, their children are going to be kind of met where they are and helped to be brought along to their proper grade level.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Mark. I would be in support of looking into that as well.
Thank you, Mark.
I appreciate this suggestion as well. This is Sherry. And I think that getting that option, making it viable sooner rather than later, or at least getting it out there to the public, might help calm some of these parents who are worried about it.
This is Dan. I definitely am in favor of exploring this. I think it's going to be a need at a lot of levels. Obviously, every level of our schooling is being affected in significant ways. I definitely have a higher degree of concern on the high school level, only because the elementary school kids, for example, will have a longer period of time to catch up, so to speak, and the high school kids have very little time to do catch up. So I'd love to know what the thoughts are as far as what it looks like, but I'm absolutely in favor of exploring that.
This is Tim. I too am in favor of exploring it. One of the things that I would request in that exploration is that you help the board understand any timelines that might be associated with it. I don't know the extent to which pieces of this would require approval by the board, but just knowing as well as we can, as soon as we can, what kind of timing constraints we're under would be a helpful part of the analysis. And thank you.
Certainly a good idea.
Marissa. Would we have to, obviously, I think we would have to hire additional staff or offer additional hours to staff over the summer. So that's something I'm interested in, how we would be able to use our staff for the summer school.
Yeah, that would require additional costs because it would be beyond the teacher work year and the collective bargaining agreement. But that is something that we could report back to the board later on.
Okay.
This is Kelly. Just say, this is Kelly, and I absolutely agree with exploring it. I'm interested of, as others have said, in what exactly this will look like, and just how this would be rolled out, of course, what the budget impact would be.
This is Mark. I think it'd be important also to contact our legislators to see if there might be any additional monetary help for that situation we and other districts might be faced with. So to the extent that you can garner support or explore what other districts might be offering, if we can look for any type of state or, I don't know, federal monies might be available in this unique situation.
Yeah, it's worth exploring. I have a feeling that we'll all be scrambling for the same pot of money.
Right.
I don't know if you heard, Virginia just closed all of their schools to the end of the academic year.
Oh, geez.
I did hear that.
That's it. Yeah.
rumor had that the governor was meeting with the interim commissioner today, as well as the district superintendents of the BOCES. I have not heard anything as a result of that meeting.
The next announcement would be whether or not, or how they're gonna handle regents, correct?
Exactly. As you know, we've heard on the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act testing, the ELA math, science, NICESLOT, all of that has been suspended. We heard from the advanced placement, the College Board, on Friday as well for modifications that they are making, that they are only testing the content up through March for this year's tests. And so the last domino to fall will be the regents, and that may very well have been the topic of discussion at today's meeting as well. So I will keep all of you posted.
Dr. Tice, excuse me, are you anticipating that Governor Cuomo will close our schools as Virginia has closed?
I would.
The fact that you mentioned Virginia.
I wouldn't want to speculate because things have changed, as you know, from one day to the next. We're just trying to stay on top of this moving ball at this point.
I know, right.
Dr. Tice, this is Dan. Just a quick question on summer school as it gets explored. I know when we've been teaching and we've been hosting the last couple of years summer school for health classes, that it's been a cooperative effort among local districts. Are you suggesting this strictly as an internal FM endeavor, or perhaps for funding purposes, does it make sense to explore this with some of our neighboring schools?
You're right. It has been a cooperative in the past, but I think gauging our interest, that's one of the reasons we want to move quickly here, because if it looks like we're going, our interest is going to exceed our capacity, we certainly want to get word out to the other districts that it's a closed shop in that regard, that we're just tending to the needs of our community at first as a priority. But should there be additional slots, then I agree, it'd be worth opening it up as we've done in the past. But my gut is telling me that we will have a lot of interest in something like that going forward, and we are just going to have to secure the instructional staff who will have to volunteer for these assignments to give up their summer. So right now, it's at a tipping point. I think we have to act sooner, and that's the reason I'm trying to gauge the board's interest in this now.
Craig, can you imagine a scenario where the vast majority of students do want to attend summer school? And is that something we could, I know they're fledgling stages of figuring this out, but is that something the district could possibly afford?
I think so. I mean, it would be redirecting some money that we put in the budget already. I think the thing in front of us will be, this isn't a summer camp that if you commit to it, you're going to have to come to summer school. This isn't, we're going away on vacation, and then when we get back in 3 weeks, my child would like to attend. This would be a pretty rigorous stint from Independence Day holiday to the middle of August.
I have one other question just related to our upcoming spring break. I know that instruction and for that week, if we were to change that, would that give us any leeway on any other end, or not really?
Some other districts are exploring that. We would have to sit down with our faculty. At first glance, I do not think it buys us anything. I mean, the way the governor's approached it, we would have to exhaust all our vacation for a closure, as well as all of our emergency closing days before we're even able to knock on the door asking for forgiveness in terms of the 180-day commitment. So we're going to have to burn through the vacation and the emergency closing days one way or another.
Okay, thanks.
So to answer your question, it would move the week, but I don't think it would buy us anything else. I think assuming a decision is made here before the end of March, do we go, as Ms. Wheeler indicated, to the end of the year, Are they looking at extending to the end of April? So much is in flux right now.
Mhm.
Okay. I just have oh, go ahead, Daryl, you wanted to say something?
No.
No, go ahead, Sarah.
There wasn't that.
Okay. I just have a big picture comment that I know we've been very conservative as a district with our budget, and I commend that.
Rebecca Cohen has left the meeting.
And in a normal year, I totally agree with that. But as we say, with our own bank accounts, you have a savings account for a rainy day, and I think this is the day that it's raining or snowing actually. So today would be, this would be a time where if we need to put some extra money into summer school and not worry about getting aid, we do what we need to do.
Understood, and we don't know where the chips are gonna fall. I don't wanna steal Mr. Furlong's thunder, but we don't have a budget yet from New York State, and any increases that were projected are tenuous at best. We're probably looking at deficits to the magnitude of when the gap elimination adjustment spread its wings as a fledgling entity. So we all are worried that increases, even building aid increases related to our capital project. It's going to be interesting to see how the Senate and the Assembly reconcile the deficit in the New York State budget.
Rebecca?
Has joined the meeting.
Okay, any further questions or thoughts on the superintendent's report?
This is Dan. Craig, there was just a couple emails over the weekend with some questions. One of them was, do you have any numbers at all on number of students who are reporting not having internet access currently?
No, we checked on that and we're not aware to. Yeah, it's very limited at this point. We've also given out about 400 Chromebooks at this point, with about another 100 to go. So we are making provisions this week to distribute the others, as we have some late requests coming in as well. So it's been very positive. The instructional technology team has done a great job. Thank you for asking.
That's good to hear. Then you also had asked us a question about, based on some community feedback, I think you were asking us about this concept of maintenance versus continuing progressive teaching versus maintaining where they're at. What's your thought, the administration's thought on that currently?
My thought, and I believe I speak for the administration, is to continue to move forward. I think we have to. We're going to have another cohort of kindergartners showing up on our doorstep in September. And I know a lot of districts that were just looking at sending out packets and treading water, I think are coming to grips and realizing that these closures may extend out into the future. So I know a lot of those districts are working hard now to push forward for that continuity of instruction. So I know some parents, as you're right, have sent emails to myself and to the board as well, worried about, should we just be doing enrichment or looking in the rear view mirror? Well, certainly some of that's appropriate, depending on the concepts and skills. I think we have to continue to push forward with the curriculum at this point.
Dr. Tice, this is Sarah. Am I on, Marissa?
Yes, you're on there.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you're on there.
I'm just concerned, as Sherry expressed, I think a lot of our parents are doing a great job, and I'm sure, I don't even begin to know, I don't know how hard our teachers are working, but I am very sympathetic for a lot of our, not just single moms, but, or dads, but also we have a lot of health professionals whose lives are very changed right now, and they're just not able to do the kind of educating, if you will, in the little time that they're at home with their children. And I've heard from a few who are very concerned. And so when you talk about moving forward, I understand that that's ideally what we will do. but I also wish that there were a way that we could calm the anxiety of these parents who don't know that they're going to be able to do it. I mean, that's just my thought. So.
No, I hear you, and I think that's why the summer school option is something worth considering for us.
Right.
This is Tim. I just want to make a point on that. I think, and this is an initial thought of different sources of anxiety. There are many. One of them academically is grades. And it seems to me like if we were to push forward with new content, which I wholly believe in and I wholly support, because additional stimulation, I think, is in the best interest of all the kids to continue to learn, to continue to try new things. To the extent there's anxiety, I don't know that it's coming from a fear of additional material as much as a concern about how will I master this to get the kind of grades that I think I need. I don't know what we can do to reassure kids, or if it's premature to have this conversation, but to the extent the state, the nation, the local board, teachers can take the edge off of report cards, I think that would be a great step in the right direction.
Very well put. Sounds like a former educator. I think that's why the AP and the College Board have adjusted, and I think that's why with the presidential order and the state is pulling back on the ESSA requirements. It would not surprise me to see the Regents exam scaled back or modified accordingly. I just think you're right. Throttling back some of the pressure in that arena is time well spent.
Where are we with that here? I know when we last met on that Sunday meeting, Dr. Coughlin had said that it was still early stage discussions about what are we going to do with assessments and grades for the classrooms, not just for Regents, APs, etc. So where are your internal discussions on that? Are we grading students? Are we not grading students? Or what's the plan on that part going forward?
Yeah, we are doing assessments. Marianne.
Dr. Coughlin is on the line.
Dr.
I'm here.
Yeah, Dr. Coughlin, feel free to add anything that you would like, but we are moving forward with assessments.
Sure. So, and that's a conversation that we need to continue to have administratively and with the teachers this week. We really, our focus last week was really just getting everything up and running and getting teachers situated and the communication with the students and the families up and running. We do know we need to talk further about grading and assessment. The way in which we left it last week is that teachers will be providing feedback. It is appropriate to give grades, but that is with a lot of professional judgment right now. And again, we're hoping to have some relief from the grading, the reporting, that we would typically have, but we're continuing that conversation.
Dr. Tice, thank you, Mary. This is Kelly. To that point, I guess I just want to anecdotally say that at least from my standpoint, from what my daughters have gotten from their teachers, is they've definitely been trying to, get that message across that they're there for support and not to be too stressed about assessment and that kind of thing. And I think as a parent, I appreciate that, and I know my kids appreciate that. And so my question to Craig is, and I guess maybe to you, Mary, as well. So I know there's a lot of software programs that the teachers are using. Do they feel that they have enough in terms of software accessibility, or availability to them? Are there any other programs or products that they wish they had that would make the experience, you know, more efficient or work better for their subject areas that, you know, I'm thinking in terms of like any last minute kind of budget decisions that might have to be made?
Mm-hmm. I would say that the teachers have what they need right now. We fortunately are in a great position that we have a lot of software programs that we already been using that the teachers are familiar with, that are aligned with our curriculum and that are appropriate. I would say, if anything, right now we're struggling with getting a lot of barrage of information and solicitation from vendors who are just throwing a lot at teachers right now. And we've asked teachers to just really focus on what we have and get things situated and up and running and become adept at what we already have and what we know works and what is alive. Now, I would say as time moves on, if this becomes extended, we definitely will need to consider additional products and such. But right now, I do not feel we need anything more.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary, this is Rebecca. One question I had was with respect to, I guess, some of the younger students. Might there be, or actually really at all levels, might there be a move towards even sort of parent-teacher conferences or individualized check-ins with students and teachers and parents so that there's sort of a continuity of a learning plan, especially if this goes to the end of the year?
Mm-hmm. We talked about that. That's a great question, Rebecca. We talked about that last week as well, that should we, and if this goes on, should we have a somewhat formalized system where we are, you know, similar to how we would do parent-teacher conferences? Should we organize something along those lines so that we are getting formal feedback to parents and they can expect that? But we didn't quite get there last week, but that is definitely something that would be very important. And again, if this extends beyond April 14th, some of those pieces we will be supported.
Yeah, I can just anecdotally with 3 children in elementary school, I'm so pleased with what I'm seeing in terms of the organized daily meetings and content being pushed out to the kids and availability of teachers by email. It's just that missing piece of that live contact. So I would crave that to be able to Google chat with a teacher at, you know, some reasonable amount of time for check-ins just to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as parents, especially for the younger ones.
Great. We even had the suggestion of like an open house that we might have, a curriculum night that we would have in the fall, do something along those lines where the teacher's on with the classroom, the parents in the classroom, something along those lines. But we haven't formalized anything like that yet.
I understand.
Yeah. Thank you for the feedback, though, Rebecca. I appreciate that. The teachers have been working so hard. I'm just so thrilled with the work that's come together.
Well, that's great to hear from your end. Yeah, I can only speak to my 3 different teachers, but I just, the building, from the administrator, from principals, it's been so professional and clear.
Right.
I second that.
Right. Thank you.
From my kids as well.
Thank you for that feedback.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I would echo that too. I'm sorry, go ahead, Frank.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to echo what Rebecca was saying, because I've heard from my grandchildren and their teacher's number 1 question is, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about so I think that's so important. Thanks.
Yeah, what I was going to say, as I've shared with the board, we've received a lot of positive feedback. Families are using the Let's Talk platform. Nancy and Christine are posting a lot of the common questions online, available for everybody to read. It's just been, I've been amazed. It's just been fabulous. Not that I would have expected any different. I know we're less than a week into it here, but I'm very proud of everyone involved in moving this forward. And the one thing to remember is we know it's not optimal. So in spite of the face of adversity, everybody is really collaborating and working together. And like I said, it's only going to get better. Not that we want to do anything like this long term, but for a stopgap measure, like I said, I couldn't be more proud of the team.
Hey, Craig, this is Dan. One other specific course update question. Do you have any update on super classes?
I have not heard from SUPA. I don't know if Dr. Coughlin has.
I can jump into that. Yes, we have heard from SUPA, and they have given direction to the SUPA teachers. They want them to continue with the curriculum and the syllabus in an online format, and that's the expectation. In terms of anything else, any other direction, we haven't had anything further since last week, but they were to continue with the syllabus.
Thank you, Dr. Coughlin.
Okay. Are there any further questions from the board? Okay, so we'll move.
Marissa, this is Kelly. Sorry, I'm just looking at the very last thing on your report, Craig, that we're looking at about the school start time. Because I'm just wondering what the status is of that, obviously. I know
Yeah, that
what's
was,
going on at the time.
I wanted, thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to end with the discussion. I probably should have snuck that in earlier. Under strategic planning, Dr. Lewin reached out. Obviously, he's under the same travel restrictions. And so he just asked, are we still on? Do we need to postpone now? I think a lot will be determined in the weeks ahead. Are we done April 1st? Is it going to April 14th, as Dr. Coughlin mentioned? Is it extended out further? So there's certainly homework we could be doing with our travel, transportation studies going forward. But when do we host the town hall meetings? I think a lot of that will depend on when we're cleared from the pandemic, so to speak. Does that move into the early autumn? So he just reached out. I just wanted to give the board an FYI.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
Okay, so item 3.02 is the preliminary 2020-21 budget information. Bill?
Yes, good evening, everybody.
Hi, Bill.
I'd like to begin by saying that, you know, the preliminary budget that we reviewed in the workshop earlier this month, we have made modifications to based upon, you know, the financial markets and recent events. If it pleases the board, since you've seen this presentation before, I'd like to highlight, you know, what has changed since then. If you scroll down to the third screen or third slide, the general overview, you know, the most important aspect is that we are maintaining or enhancing all existing student programs. As you can see, the preliminary budget has actually been decreased with ongoing operations now reflecting a 2.92% increase, which results in a tax levy increase of 2.23%. The main reason for the reduction in the budget is we have revised interest income, and we also had a change in our tax levy limit. Both of those items ended up reducing revenue by about $400,000, so we had to make the corresponding reductions on the expenditure side. As I mentioned last time, you know, one of the impacts that we're having this year is new debt coming on for, you know, voter-approved building projects that were recently completed for Fayetteville Elementary, and there's Road Elementary and the high school. Those projects have a overall budget increase of 0.78% and a related tax levy increase of 0.89%. The final bullet on this slide is really just to indicate that we're really in uncharted waters right now. Usually by this time of year, we've heard some information. And while we might not have the final state aid run, from the New York State budget, we have a pretty good indication of where we're going to come out. This year, with the state having a budget deficit to begin with, and now forecasts of almost a doubling of that original deficit, we really have no idea right now where the state aid number is going to come out. However, having said that, I know the governor keeps encouraging the state legislature to finalize the budget so they can move forward. And we do know that an on-time budget is April 1st. And we're hopeful that we will have a budget at that point in time. I'm sure that the state is kind of looking at the federal government and seeing what stimulus package is passed by Congress that will definitely, help ease the pain, so to speak. So the overall budget overview is that, this budget, the state aid portion is based on the governor's executive budget proposal. We are currently at our tax levy limit under New York State law. And we did revise some of the other sources of revenue, specifically interest income, because interest rates have really bottomed out. The next slide, which is a state aid comparison, is what you've seen before. This is not changed from the previous meeting. It encompasses the governor rolling different aid categories into foundation aid. And we are hopeful that once that is, the state budget is passed, that the legislature will not do that. As for the tax levy limit, the consumer price index remains the same, as does the taxable value growth factor. The capital exclusion did decrease once again because we reduced the amount of money we were putting into the capital transfer. If you add up those three pieces, we do see an overall tax levy increase, including the due debt, of 3.12%. But at this time, we're still feeling that the tax rate increase is going to be fairly nominal. We are still expecting growth in assessments that would almost entirely offset the tax levy increase. And right now, we're conservatively estimating that the tax rate increase will be less than 0.25%. Moving forward to all other revenues, and the chart that lists them individually, you can see that interest income was reduced to $113,000. When we previewed the budget earlier this month, that was actually $413,000. We have reduced that by $300,000 from the earlier look at the budget. As for appropriate fund balance, we've kept with the appropriate fund balance of $840,000, which includes our usual $750,000 plus the $90,000 that was associated with the unanticipated pilot agreement in the current year. As for the expenditure side of the budget, we've discussed already the main cost drivers being contractual salary increases, health insurance premiums, changes in retirement system, employer contribution rates. Those have not changed since the last time we discussed the budget. The debt payments has also not changed. We're pretty set with what our debt payments are going to be for next year and how that impacts the overall budget and the tax levy limit. As you move down to the instructional program for expenditures and the line by line budget. The one thing I wanted to note that we have restated the 1920 budget column. As you remember, we had some changes in where certain BOCES codes were associated.
Mm-hmm.
So I've restated 1920 to bring that into a more apples to apples comparison, which I think the board will hopefully agree is a better way of looking at things. The most significant increase on the program side is salaries, of course. We do have an increase in equipment as well. If you go to the second slide on the instructional program, you'll see that special education costs are down. That was really related to several students moving out of the district that were high need students, and therefore our costs went down. You will see the instructional media is up substantially. That's due to additional equipment, due to additional security that we're putting in place. You know, security has been a focus the last couple of years and continues to be. Moving on to administration, the overall administration budget is up ever so slightly. We have a little bit of traffic on each individual line item, but the overall budget is a fairly reasonable percentage increase. And then with ongoing operations, you know, for this presentation, I've split the capital component of the budget into two different pieces. One being the ongoing operations, which is, you know, our custodial maintenance group, all the utilities that we incur cost with, and, you know, the usual bus purchase and related debt, and also the transfer to capital amount. You will note that the transfer to capital was reduced from 600,000 to 450 because of our reduction in the revenue side of the budget. But you'll see that the overall operations costs are actually going down slightly. The following slide talks about the transfer to capital. We still anticipate using the 450,000 for both work at the high school, specifically the repaving of most of Pride Lane. We are also planning on some security work at the high school that will make that repaving building aidable. We are also looking at replacing some of the carpeting, at least beginning that process at Enders Road. Some of that replacement will also include asbestos abatement. Next slide is the capital portion of the budget, but specifically to the voter-approved building projects that were recently completed, specifically Fayetteville Elementary, Enders Road Elementary, and the high school. Our long-term debt is increasing because of that. We are also having some short-term financing costs associated with funding that project. But we're looking at the overall capital portion related to the building projects going up by about $745,000. There is associated building aid that offsets a large portion of that. As for the employee benefit side, there were some minor changes related to, you know, just kind of fine tuning the budget between the budget workshop earlier this month and where we are today. We are still looking at a fairly significant increase in employee benefits, mainly driven by health insurance premiums going up by 6%. So the next slide, which is the expenditure summary slide, recaps the entire budget, the three components being administration, program, and capital. We did have a subtotal, if you will, of ongoing operations. As you can see, our ongoing operations budget is 2.92%. When we do add in the costs associated with the recent building projects, you can see that the overall budget jumps to 3.7%. But that is under the 4.1% that we were looking at earlier this month. We will have a second proposition that will be a school bus replacement. We are still looking at replacing 5 school buses this next year. The total cost is up a little bit from the current year, but the cost of this bus purchase does not have an impact in next year's budget. Because we borrow, the first debt payments would be actually in the 21-22 school year. So this doesn't have a budgetary impact, but yet we must put up the proposition since we were looking at borrowing the funds to make the purchase of the buses. So looking at future budget presentations and budget adoption, I have a feeling the next 3 weeks are going to be extremely busy. Looking at, once we get the state aid numbers, we may only have about 2 weeks to be able to react to that prior to the April 20th adoption of the budget. The latest the board could adopt, I believe, is April 24th or 25th this year. So we don't really have a whole lot of time to finalize our budget. Well, there's been some discussion about, will the state change, the universal voting day. Right now, we are just, continuing with what the current timeline is until we hear differently. I think it's important that we do maintain that current timeline. And, once again, once we get the budget adoption by the Board of Education later in April, we will, of course, have our budget hearing, which is held by law 7 to 14 days prior to the budget vote, which is the 3rd Tuesday in May. I know I covered a lot of territory, but I know the board has seen this before, and there has been some significant change just in the last 2 weeks. And we are really uncertain as to where state aid is going to come out. But if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Bill, I know we won't be able to likely do our, we likely will not be able to do our in-person advocacy visits and before this budget is needs to be approved or before we get our final state numbers. But do you have any plans to reach out to our elected officials before April 20th to see, to advocate for FM to see if we can get additional aid?
This is Craig. We received word from the Assemblyman's office. I know the Senate seat's vacant, as you know. We received word from the Assembly that they're just trying damage control, that we shouldn't expect any additional increases, that if anything, we may end up getting less than what the governor's executive budget proposed.
Thank you.
There is a sizable deficit that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
The one thought is we were definitely taking a look at different contingency planning, related to, it's really difficult to forecast how much the state's going to give us at this point. But what we can do on the expenditure side is take a look at different items and see, where we can fine tune the budget, perhaps free up some money for other items if, in case we do see revenue reductions. The one thing that I would like to do is see if we could set up a finance committee meeting online, at some point before the April 20th board adoption, so that the finance committee can be briefed on what our state aid picture looks like and what we're going to have to do on the expenditure side to match up with those revenues.
I think that's a great idea.
Bill, this is
So,
Dan. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, that's fine, Dan. Go ahead.
So thanks obviously for the presentation and slides, and I surely don't envy you at this time, because this might be one of the hardest budget seasons we have, with the tremendous unknowns of what's going to come out of the state, given everything around us right now. If we had to work off of planning, to go back to the beginning of our discussions tonight, if we made the assumption that our budget would stay relatively close to how it is presented right now, and if we were to make a decision to go forward with a summer schooling program, where would you envision that funding coming from out of the current proposed budget?
Well, our budget, to a large extent is made up of, labor and benefits. It's the salaries that we pay our employees and their associated benefits. There's not a whole lot there we can do. Where typically we look at is what I call discretionary spending. Is it furniture? Is it equipment? Taking a hard look at all the budget requests we have, supplies, and seeing what discretionary spending we can free up to accommodate other items such as summer school. I think for right now, we have to kind of somehow quantify what summer school means. Make an assumption on how many students are we talking, what would the staffing need be, and then taking a look at, how much is that going to cost us from a labor and benefit standpoint. Once we kind of quantify the dollar amount, then, it's just a matter of trying to, find enough money in the budget to cover that. And it might be something where we have to do without for a year on, one of those other discretionary spending items. But there's probably going to be a number of those items we'd have to take a look at. And while we do, budget conservatively, that has been tightened down just in the last 2 weeks. And also part of our contingency going forward, the first place we would look is to, see if we can be a little bit less conservative in how we approach the budget in terms of expenditures and revenues. But, the jury's still out on what the state's going to do. I know the last time when the GEA went into effect, full effect, Fayetteville-Manlius lost $3 million in state aid revenue per year for a number of years. And that would be difficult.
So just a real quick follow-up to that. I totally agree with the Finance Committee meeting. One of the things, to the extent you have it or can have it, that might be helpful for that is if you're able to have or already have some reporting on where we're at on the current year budget or forecast of where you feel we may end up with the current year budget, so that, if we find that we're underspending the current year budget, then that obviously gives us a little cushioning. If we're right on budget, then we don't necessarily have that, but that may be a helpful data point in some of those decisions.
And we do take a look at that as well. So I'd be happy to share that with the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
And Bill, if there's any sense that the state would close schools for the remainder of the year, I definitely think that ASBO needs to push hard to advocate for a delay in the budget vote to give schools time, if they want to regroup and offer a summer program. They can then make adjustments to their budget for the ensuing fiscal year. Because I think the numbers, could be big.
Yeah, and I'm not sure,
especially with.
I'm not sure what ASBO is, whether they're advocating for that or not. I think at the end of the day, it probably it really depends on, you know, how much this is spread, you know, whether we are still, you know, basically everybody staying, you know, working from home or not. You know, it is problematic pushing back the budget vote because for those districts, if they did have a failed budget vote, they would then have to start, because usually what they do is they give you a revote a month later.
June 16th.
Well, then you'd be into July. And, you know, then you don't have any authority to spend any money into the next fiscal year, which would be problematic. Now, that probably would affect very few districts. I could see where that would be really very detrimental for those districts that would have to endure that.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I think we have to look at the majority and the benefit of having a budget that could be relied on and not something that's just being passed and we have no clue about, you know, what the next year is going to look like.
Yeah. Well, the real telling part will be whether New York State passes a budget on time or not. Because if all of a sudden they're late with their budget process, I would wholeheartedly agree with you that we would need to have our budget adoption and the budget vote pushed back as well. With all the uncertainty over what state aid we'd be getting next year, not having that information. And I know there was a time when I think the state was not on time with their budget. I think it was like 20 straight years or something like that. But you could pretty much estimate where the state was going to come out, and you could be pretty close. Not this year. You know, with everything going on at the you know, national level and with the economy, really have no idea where the state revenues are going to be until they finalize their budget, and then we have a benchmark to go by. Any other questions?
Are there,
Bill, I did have just an update. You probably don't have anything, but you were concerned about the BOCES aid and transportation aid being rolled into the whole equation before, and you were hoping when the state, you know, people would advocate, and that would not be the case. I know they have bigger things to worry about, but have you heard anything on that end?
I have not. I know there has been quite a bit of advocating for not rolling certain aid categories into foundation aid, and I would be very hopeful that that would not happen. But like you said, you know, they might be focused on different issues right now, or bigger issues that you know, what I'm afraid of is that the governor's proposal gets passed as is. And I think that would be, you know, just adding insult to injury.
Okay, thank you.
I do wish I could have more optimistic news here.
No, we appreciate you doing the best with what you have.
thank you very much, Bill. If there are no further questions for Bill, we will move on to item 4.01. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 28th special meeting? Motion?
I move it.
Okay, motion from Daryl. Second from, I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
When you make a, could you just
Okay.
state your name when you, thank you. That's Sherry, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a first and a second, and then I'll do a roll call for the vote. Christopher Foley?
Abstain.
Linders? Yay. And Ellen, is Ellen on the call?
She is not.
Okay. Okay. Cyberg?
Abstain.
Wheeler?
Aye.
Walensky?
Yep.
Mark? Kelly?
Abstain.
Rebecca?
In favor.
And I am voting in favor as well. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, item 4.02, approval of the minutes of the March 9th, 2020 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Kelly, so moved.
Thank you. Second?
Sherry, second.
Thank you. Christopher Foley?
Discussion first?
Oh, sorry, discussion, yes, go ahead.
I have none. I'm ready for the roll. Just wondering if anybody had any discussion.
Oh, sorry about that.
This is Dan. I did get everybody's comments so you could see it ahead of time, but in 4.02, I'm sorry, on this one, in items 8.01 and 8.02, the motions were to withdraw the proposed bid awards, not to withdraw the bids themselves.
Correction noted. This is Sarah. Thank you.
Any further discussion of the March 9th minutes? Is there a motion to approve the revised? Oops. Oh,
Marissa, this is Rebecca. I need to hang up and call back. I'll be right back.
okay,
Is that okay?
sure.
Okay.
We're gonna
my
keep
phone.
going, but when you come
Battery's
back,
dying. Okay,
okay, thank you. Okay,
Rebecca.
Has left the meeting.
okay, so we are on item 4.02. Is there a motion to approve the revised March 9th, 2020 minutes?
So
Kelly,
moved.
so moved. Sherry.
Okay, Sherry, the first, is there a second?
Mark, second.
Mark, second, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, Tim,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes?
Daryl,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
A participant has joined the meeting.
Yes.
Rebecca, is that you back?
I'm back and I abstain.
Okay, thank you. And I'm voting to approve. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 4.03, and I would ask, if you have your phone not on mute when you're not speaking, could you please mute your phone when you're not speaking, because we are getting some background noise. Thank you. All right, 4.03, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 15th special meeting?
And moves.
Dan, thank you. Second?
Kelly, second.
Kelly, second, thank you. Any discussion of those March 15th minutes? Okay, so we have a first and a second. Roll call, Tim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes?
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I'm voting yes as well. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 4.01, the resolution related to COVID-19 on employees. Is there a motion that the Board of Education of the Fayetteville-Manlius Central School District hereby adopt the resolution below as recommended by the superintendent? Is there a motion? Okay, motion from Sherry, second please.
Kelly, second.
Thank you, Kelly. Discussion? There was a couple of changes in here that we needed to make.
This resolution was submitted by Mr. Gordon after consultation with legal counsel, personnel at BOCES. It just gives the district the authority in the state of emergency that we're in to pay employees as needed, essential, non-essential going forward without anybody calling into question us being able to dictate in this event of an emergency.
This is Dan. There was just a date correction to be made in there in paragraph 6.
That was the date of the time executive state of emergency. Is that correct, Dan?
It was the county declaration, which I believe was on the 14th, not the 7th.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
So we would change that to March 14th, 2020.
Correction noted. Thank you.
Any additional corrections to the resolution? Okay. Is there a motion to, is there a motion to approve the resolution with the corrected date?
Dan moves.
Thank you, Dan. Second.
Mark will second.
Mark. Any further discussion? Roll call. Kim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I vote in favor as well. Thank you. Next on the agenda, item 4.05, personnel actions. Is there a motion at the board?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Daryl. That's okay.
I would accept the personnel action.
Thank you, Daryl. Is there a second?
Sherry, second.
Thank you, Sherry. All those in favor? I will make the roll call. Tim? I'm sorry, Tim?
Yeah.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, next on the agenda, item 4.06, the secret resolution for the bus proposition. Is there a motion that the FM School District approve the secret resolution, type 2 action bus proposition as presented?
Kelly, so
Mark,
moved.
make a motion.
Thank you, Kelly. And the second, I didn't catch who that was.
Mark?
Mark, thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Christy Foley?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. Item 4.07. Is there a motion the Board of Education approve the secret resolution type 2 transfer to capital projects as presented?
So moved. Daryl.
Motion
Second,
from Daryl,
Rebecca.
second from Rebecca. Any discussion? Tim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, item 4.0. Item 4.08. Is there a motion that the Board of Education of the Fayetteville-Manlius School District approve the 2020-21 annual budget notice as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I believe I heard, I'm sorry, could you repeat the motions again?
I think Mark and I
Mark.
moved in second around the same time.
All right,
Yeah.
so Mark first, Sherry second. Any discussion?
This is Dan. I just want to say something obviously that we need to flag very carefully as guidance comes from the state, because this contains public meeting notices and invites people into the school to review budget information when we have closed schools and no meetings. So I know we have to put this out now by deadline, but it's just one of those items that's going to have to get flagged. I know Sarah will, for amendment if and when changes come from guidance for the state.
I absolutely will, Dan, no problem.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Tim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. Moving on to item 4.09. Is there a motion that the Board of Education approve the DGA Builders contract amendment for the Fayetteville Elementary School new electric service project in the lump sum of $33,000?
Rebecca, so moved.
Thank you, Rebecca. Second?
I will second it.
Second from Daryl. Any discussion? Okay. Tim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. I have nothing, future meetings calendar. We will have video conferencing available for our next meeting. And, who knows, we probably will have to have a special meeting at some point, depending on how things go from the state. But thank you all for being flexible. Much appreciated. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Dan votes.
Thank you, Dan.
Kelly,
Second. From Kelly. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. All right, Tim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes, with great appreciation for the administration for dealing with this with the schools closed and having to meet with everybody during that.
Daryl?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Finally, the last thing on our agenda is an adjournment. And before we do adjourn, again, thank you very much to Dr. Tice and your team and our teachers and our staff who are really making the best of a situation that none of us could have planned for. So your work is very much appreciated. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. That means a lot to the team.
Thank you, Dr. Tice. Motion to adjourn?
Mark will make a motion.
Thank you, Mark. Second?
I'll second it. Sarah.
Daryl, thank you. Any discussion? Tim?
Yes.
Sherry? Yes. Dan?
Yes, and thank you all.
Rebecca? I got an
Out
order.
of order, yes.
I did, I'm sorry. Let me go back. So I got Dan, so next would have been Daryl.
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes, stay well, everyone.
Rebecca.
I already voted.
Oh, okay, and I vote yes as well. Rebecca, sorry about that. And I vote yes as well. Thank you guys very much. We certainly made the best of what we could get done today, so thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Stay
All right, you guys
safe.
stay
Be
well. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye.
Has left the meeting.